So maybe we'll read another literary classic. This one I think is my all-time favorite. We got some green eggs and ham. So yes, all-time classic. I am Sam. I am Sam. Sam I am. That's Sam I am. That's Sam I am. I do not like. That's Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them. Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them? Here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I ham. Would you like them in a house? Would you like them with a mouse? I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am. Would you eat them in a box? Would you eat them with a fox? Not in a box. Not in a fox. Not in a house. Not with a mouse. I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them anywhere. I would not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am. Would you, could you, in a car, eat them, here they are. I would not, could not, in a car. You may like them, you will see. You may like them in a tree. I would not, could not, in a tree, not in a car. You let me be. I do not like them in a box. I do not like them with a fox. I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am! A train! A train! A train! A train! Could you, would you, on a train? Not on a train! Not in a tree! Not in a car! Sam! Let me be! I would not, could not, in a box! I would not, with a fox! I would not eat them with a mouse! I would not eat them in a house! I will not eat them here or there! I will not eat them anywhere! I do not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am. Say, in the dark, here in the dark, would you, could you, in the dark? I would not, could not, in the dark. Would you, could you, in the rain? I would not, could not, in the rain. Not in the dark, not on a train, not in a car, not in a tree. I do not like them, Sam, you see. Not in a house, not in a box, not with a mouse, not with a fox. I will not eat them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. You do not like green eggs and ham? I do not like them. Sam I am. Could you, would you, with a goat? I could, I would not, could not, with a goat. Would you, could you, on a boat? I could not, would not, on a boat. I will not, with a goat. I will not eat them in the rain. I will not eat them on a train. Not in the dark, not in a tree, not in a car. Will you let me be? I do not like them in a box. I do not like them with a fox. I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am. You do not like them, so you say. Try them, and you may. Try them, and you may, I say. Sam, if you will let me, I will try them. You will see. Say, I like green eggs and ham. I do. I like them. Sam, my ham. I would eat them in a boat, and I would eat them with a goat, and I will eat them in the rain, and in the dark, and on the train, and in a car, and in a tree. They are so good, you see? So I will eat them in a box, and I will eat them with a fox, and I will eat them in a house, and I will eat them with a mouse, and I will eat them here and there. Say, I will eat them anywhere. I do like green eggs and ham. Thank you, Sam I am. So yes, that was the literary masterpiece, Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. And a real morality lesson there. We don't want to judge something and make up our minds before we give a chance and check it out. So yes, that book was a real emotional roller coaster with a lot of ups and downs.